You may have committed one of these 7 sins this week and never even called it sin. We usually think sin has to look serious before we call it sin. But what if some of the most dangerous sins in your life are the ones you've learned to call normal? Number 1, gossip. You call it venting, you call it catching up, you call it just sharing for prayer. It slides into conversations so naturally, you never even register the shift. One sentence you're talking about your day, the next you're talking about someone who isn't in the room to defend themselves. Proverbs 16:28 says, "A gossip separates close friends, not enemies, friends, the exact people it's disguised as caring about." That's what makes it so dangerous. It doesn't feel like betrayal in the moment. It feels like bonding. Ask yourself honestly, if the person you're talking about walked into the room right now, would your tone stay exactly the same, or would you suddenly change the subject? But it gets deeper than what comes out of your mouth. It moves into what's constantly running underneath it. Number 2, constant complaining. Everyone around you does it too, so it feels harmless. About traffic, the weather, the job, the marriage, the people around you. Philippians 2:14 doesn't say complain less, it says do everything without grumbling. This isn't about having one honest hard day and needing to vent. It's about the constant low hum of dissatisfaction that's become your default setting. The tone you reach for automatically before you even try gratitude. When grumbling becomes your normal response to life, it can quietly turn your frustration toward the one who gave you that life, whether you meant it that way or not. Here's what makes this next one dangerous. It doesn't even feel like lying anymore. Number 3, small lies. You didn't lie, technically. You just said, "I'm fine," when you weren't. You said, "I'm almost there," when you hadn't left the house yet. You told them you loved the gift you actually didn't. Ephesians 4:25 says speak truth to your neighbor, with no small talk exception carved out anywhere in that verse. The principle was never really about the size of the lie. It's about which direction you're quietly training your mouth to default toward when honesty would cost you something, truth or convenience. And this is where many believers miss it completely, because this one doesn't even look like a choice. It looks like a habit. Number 4, comparison. You opened the app feeling fine and closed it feeling like your life wasn't enough. Nothing bad even happened to you in those 10 minutes. You just scrolled, watched other people's highlight reels, and somehow walked away poorer than you started. James 3:16 warns that where envy exists, disorder follows. Comparison rarely announces itself as sin. It doesn't feel like disobedience. It just quietly rewrites how you feel about a life you were genuinely content with 10 minutes ago. Ask yourself, what did you actually lose in those 10 minutes, besides your peace? Now look at what happens next, because this is the one that hides the deepest, wrapped in language that sounds mature and healthy. Number 5, unforgiveness. You say, "I forgave them," but you still replay the conversation at night. You still flinch a little when their name comes up. You've built distance, and you call it boundaries. But if you're honest, it's really just bitterness wearing a calmer, more socially acceptable voice. Hebrews 12:15 warns about a root of bitterness springing up and defiling many, not just you, but everyone around you who quietly feels the tension you swear you've already let go of. Painful memories can resurface even after real forgiveness. That alone isn't the problem. The question is what you do the moment it resurfaces. If you've forgiven them, why are you still feeding the scene every time it comes back instead of releasing it again? And here's a contradiction most Christians live inside for years without ever naming it out loud, even to themselves. Number 6, prayerlessness. When everything falls apart, you pray. When the diagnosis comes, when the marriage is shaking, when there's nowhere else left to turn, you pray hard, you pray desperately. But on the ordinary Tuesday, when everything's fine, Prayer quietly disappears from the day entirely without you ever deciding to stop. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 says, "Pray without ceasing." Not pray in emergencies, not pray when you remember. Think about what that pattern actually says about the relationship. Would you call it real? Would you call it close if you only spoke to someone when you needed something from them? And now, the one culture has worked hardest for years to convince you isn't actually sin at all. Number 7, sexual sin. Not every attraction, not every fleeting thought that crosses your mind uninvited. Those aren't what this is about, and this isn't meant to make you afraid of your own mind. This is about what you deliberately feed. The scroll late at night you'd never let anyone see over your shoulder. The emotional closeness with someone who isn't your spouse, quietly justified because nothing physical happened. The secret behavior kept secret specifically because some part of you already knows exactly what it is. 1 Corinthians 6:18 doesn't say manage it, negotiate reasonable boundaries around it, or keep it contained. It says flee. That word alone tells you something important. This isn't a battle fought standing still, arguing with it, reasoning with it. It's one you have to outrun every single time it shows up. Gossip that feels like bonding, complaints that quietly accuse, small lies that feel harmless, comparison that steals without announcing itself, unforgiveness dressed up as boundaries, prayer that only shows up in emergencies, and the one you've kept hidden even from yourself, justified in language that sounds almost reasonable. None of these felt like sin while you were living inside them. That's exactly what made them dangerous. The danger was never that these habits looked terrible from the outside. The danger was that somewhere along the way, they stopped looking wrong to you at all. If one of these exposed something in you tonight, don't defend it. Bring it to God honestly. Comment, "Search my heart," if that's your prayer today, and send this to someone who needs to stop calling sin normal. The most dangerous sins aren't always the ones everyone notices. Sometimes they're the ones you've stopped noticing in yourself.